Welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm your host, Parrish Murphy. Today we're talking about diabetes. It's a chronic disease that is increasing at an alarming rate worldwide. The content provided on this program is for informational purposes only. Consult your doctor before making any decisions about your health. If you're under a doctor's care and they're treating you for diabetes, please, by all means, follow your doctor's instructions. The purpose of this show is to provide valuable information for you and those you care for to help you live better and longer dealing with diabetes. My first guest is Dr. Ismail Porsa. He serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer for the Harris Health System, which operates 45 community-based clinics, health centers, and 2 trauma hospitals, Bentab and Lyndon B. Johnson Hospital. The system provides care and treatment for nearly 1.4 million outpatient visits and more than 36,000 hospital cases each year. I wonder if he's busy enough. Listen, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Before we even start, I want to congratulate you because you are a major part of a very successful bond passage that was just passed recently. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. First and foremost, I want to thank the residents of Harris County who voted overwhelmingly in support of this bond proposal. You know, Harris Health has been in existence for almost 60 years. This was the first time that Harris Health had gone to the residents of the county for the bond support. And three out of 4 people who voted last November in the election voted to support our $2.5 billion bond. And let me tell you a little bit about what that is going to achieve. A brand new hospital on the LBJ campus, a level 1 trauma capable hospital with twice the capacity of today's LBJ hospital. Some of the services that hospital is going to provide that today we currently do not have access to on that campus is acute neurosurgical cases, taking care of stroke patients, acute cardiac cath capabilities, taking care of heart attack patients, and around-the-clock access to basically every specialty that you can think of. In addition to that, once this hospital opens its doors in early 2029, we'll be able to refurbish the existing LBJ hospital to provide some of the services that, again, that campus does not provide, including inpatient psychiatric care, as well as outpatient psychiatric care and crisis stabilization. Another $400 million into expanding the capacity of Bentab Hospital, adding another 120 beds to that campus. And what I'm really mostly excited about is $500 million investment in our community clinics, creating 3 new health centers in addition to expanding the capabilities and the capacity of existing clinics.
2 of the diseases that you'll be dealing with will be hypertension, better known as high blood pressure, and diabetes. What's a direct correlation between high blood pressure and diabetes?
Yeah, it's really not a pathological correlation, if you will. It's some of the conditions that lend themselves to increasing the propensity of an individual to develop hypertension are the same things that also causes people to end up with diabetes. More specifically, type 2 diabetes, and we can get into that. What do I mean by that? Poor diet, lack of exercise, smoking, things of that nature can really, again, increase your chances of developing either disease. Very interesting for both diseases, you know, I think we can call both of them as silent killers because neither one produces symptoms early on. So a person may have diabetes, a person may have high blood pressure. They may not know it. They may not know it, unfortunately, until it's a little later in the game when they have already suffered some end organ damage, kidney damage, damage to their eyes, damage to their hearts, damage to their nervous system. So in those terms, both of these conditions can be considered as silent killers. And really, really important, I want to make sure that I get this out early on so that I won't forget about it. Really important for folks when we talk about having their annual checkups, seeing their primary care providers. One big reason for that is that diseases like hypertension, like diabetes, do not create any symptoms. You find out about it only when you show up to your primary care providers and get your blood pressure checked, when you get your finger stick checked, or you get a blood test for your annual checkup. Really, really important. I cannot emphasize this enough. Please, please, please go for your annual checkup. it doesn't matter if you feel great. Get these things checked out, because the earlier we can diagnose these, the better we can manage the disease condition and prevent some of the end organ damage.
Now, what's the difference between a type 1 diabetic and a type 2 diabetic?
Yeah, so glad you asked that as well. So first and foremost, almost 90% of the people who have diabetes in the United States have type 2 diabetes. The differences between the two of them, type 1 diabetes, and there's a lot of minutia, I'm not going to get into it, but with type 1 diabetes, there is an absolute lack of insulin. The body is just not producing insulin. So by definition, if you have type 1 diabetes, you require insulin treatment. Now, type 2 diabetes usually develops later in life. You don't necessarily require insulin, perhaps never, but chances are if you deal with type 2 diabetes for long enough, at some point, especially if you don't treat your disease condition appropriately, that you may end up requiring insulin as well. So the big difference is the complete lack of insulin in type 1 and a relative lack of insulin due to insulin resistance in type 2.
What are some of the major causes of diabetes?
For type 1, it's an
Outside of drinking way too much Kool-Aid.
It's okay. Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. For type 1 diabetes, it's really an autoimmune disease. Your body actually attacks the part of the pancreas that creates insulin, that secretes insulin. That's type 1, and that's why it's an absolute lack of insulin. Type 2, that develops later in life, main causes of that is really obesity, is weight gain. What happens is that there are other causes as well, but the major cause is obesity. What happens is that as we get older and people put on weight, initially there may not be an impact, because when we add on weight, initially it's what we call subcutaneous fat. But as you put on more weight and you add more fat to your body, that fat gets deposited in areas other than under your skin. That includes your liver and your muscle. So you may have heard of fatty liver. When that happens, there's actually an increase resistance to insulin. You need insulin to allow the glucose, the sugar in your blood, to get inside your cell, which we all need to function. As you add more fat to body tissues like muscle and liver, there is an increased resistance to insulin. So your pancreas actually secretes even more insulin. So early on in type 2 diabetes, you may actually have more insulin than a normal person. But what is happening is that your body has become resistant to that insulin. At some point, the pancreas basically gives out, cannot produce any more insulin. And if you will, it kind of burns out and produces less insulin. And that's when that equilibrium kind of falls out of whack and people become diabetic by definition, meaning that there's too much sugar in their blood, overwhelming the ability of the kidney to not secrete glucose in the urine. Once you start secreting glucose in your urine, because of osmolality, increased osmolality in your urine, the thickness of your urine, if you will, more water also gets secreted. So as that happens, people go to the bathroom more often. People go more thirsty, so to drink more water. They start going to the bathroom more often. Those are some of the early symptoms of diabetes, and people may not put it all together until, unfortunately, it's a little too late.
How big has this disease become over the last 10 to 15 years?
It is huge, and it's really mind-boggling to think about this. Currently, more than 11% of the US population is considered to have diabetes.
Wow.
That's more than 1 in 10 Americans with diabetes, and it gets worse. Out of those 11%, almost 1 in 5 don't know they have diabetes. And when you consider the older group, those over the age of 65, almost 1 in 3 have diabetes.
Wow.
One of the number one causes of type 2 diabetes, which is, again, 90% of all diabetes in this country, is obesity, and there is such a rampant issue with that condition in our country. It makes sense.
This is all seems primarily food related. Why is our food so bad?
Oh, my goodness. So I'm trying to really stick with the science and not get into the politics of
Okay,
food.
I understand. But just give me some real talk.
Sure.
Why is that? I remember, I know in my family, diabetes runs in my family. I've had relatives that had amputations before, but they had severe cases of it. I don't remember it being this common.
Yeah, so a couple of things. When you think about several decades ago, yes, our food was healthier. We did not have around-the-clock TV ads for potato chips.
Well, yeah.
And the different types of snacks that are all processed foods. What is so detrimental about processed food is that a couple of things. One, the number of additives that are added that are just not good for your body. But processed food gets transformed into sugar so quickly. It really does not allow the body to adjust to the slow increase of the bloodstream glucose levels that you would get normally when you think about the past years when you had whole grain food items. Nowadays, you eat it basically within minutes. Your bloodstream becomes inundated with glucose, completely overwhelming your body's ability to counteract that with insulin, and you create this vicious cycle. In addition to that, we've become such a sedentary community. Getting to your question about what people can do, it's really lifestyle choices that we all can make, right? Every little weight loss matters. And I have to say this, when people get discouraged, people who have had 10, 20, 30, however number of pounds overweight, they become so discouraged and they lose track of the fact that you did not gain that extra 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 pounds overnight. By the same token, the expectation should never be that you're going to lose that weight in a week, in a month, or even in a year. I always tell people a good rule of thumb is no more than half a pound of weight loss a week, no more than 2 pounds of weight loss a month. And people say, well, that's so slow. No, it's not. 2 pounds of weight loss a month, that's 24 pounds of weight loss in a year. You do that a couple of years in a row, you're talking about 50 pounds of weight loss in 2 years. The nice thing about approaching weight loss in that fashion is that it stays with you. That's something that your body can adjust to. When people go on this yo-yo diets, and they lose 15 pounds in a week or in a month, it is almost impossible to keep that weight off your body because your thermostat, your internal thermostat, is not going to be able to adjust. So chances are in a couple of months you're going to gain that weight back plus some. So long-winded answer to your question, what can we do? Eat better, exercise, sleep more. That's one of the things that this society has unfortunately have fallen victim to.
Sleep when you're dead. That's what they tell you.
Which is very, very unfortunate.
Right.
And there's studies coming out, more and more studies coming out about the impact and the benefit of sleeping. Really, really important.
If you don't have insurance, if you're unfortunate and you don't have insurance, what can you do to help with diabetes?
So several things. One, you mentioned Harris Health at the top of this conversation. Yes, we are the safety net healthcare provider for this community, for Harris County. In addition to Harris Health, there are federally qualified health centers. There are other faith-based and non-faith-based charity organizations. There are opportunities for folks who do not have insurance to gain access to healthcare. I'm just going to talk about Harris Health. The requirement for you to qualify for our patient financial assistance, you need to be a resident of Harris County. That's all you need.
Okay.
And then based on your annual income, you can qualify for basically free healthcare at Harris Health or subsidized healthcare at Harris Health. One of the things that we are doing, and I'm going to put a plug in for the work that's being done at Harris Health, is that a few years ago we started this program where we are able to pay or subsidize health insurance for some of their low-income residents. And currently we're doing that for almost 25,000 residents of Harris County, basically providing them with health insurance. Obviously not every one of them is going to come to Harris Health because we have capacity issues, but even those who do come to us, that revenue is more than pay for the investment that we are making in this, providing health insurance to the community. Those who don't come to us and go elsewhere in the community, that's great. The end result is that we have provided access to healthcare for these people.
Okay. Why does it seem that diabetes and high blood pressure tend to affect more minority communities?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question.
Are we just living bad? What are we doing wrong?
No. It's a misnomer, and I really struggle with this, and I try to correct it when I hear it. That I hear that African Americans have a are at higher risk of X, Y, and Z, or Hispanics are at higher risk. There is very little, if any, genetic reason behind that. The reason why our African American population, our Hispanic population, suffer more from diseases like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, has nothing to do with being black or being Hispanic. Has everything to do with what these communities over decades have been exposed to. Mm-hmm. When you think about low wages, when you think about poor housing, when you think about lack of access to healthy food, those are the conditions that over several decades have increased the risk of developing these diseases in these communities. It is not a genetic condition. Mm-hmm. It's a societal condition. Okay. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, I was going to stay away from politics. Let me just say this.
Hey, give me real talk. That's what I want. I want people to get real talk from you because you have a wealth of information. And my purpose of even doing this show is just to give people information that they can use.
Well, thank you for that. And this is reality. Mm-hmm. It's decades upon decades of underserving and discriminating against our communities of color that have created this condition where you and I sit here today and say that our African American communities and our Hispanic communities are at higher risk of developing these diseases. That is the underlying condition. Mm-hmm. And for us to get to a situation of parity, for us to get in a situation of equality for our communities of color with the rest of the population, is that we need to address those underlying discriminatory behaviors and policies. And that's the real talk.
Now, high blood pressure and diabetes, they're affecting, it seems like the effects of it are getting younger and younger and younger. When I was growing up, I had uncles and aunts, and they would always say, well, my sugar's bad. It just seemed like an older disease. Now, hypertension and diabetes, they're affecting people 20 and under now.
Yeah, so, again, it's really going back to what our societies has become. When you and I were younger, I'm willing to bet, I know this was true in my case, my mom would tell me, get out.
Yes.
Right? Just
get out the house.
Get out of the house, right? So, we would go out and, we find things to do. Like, I grew up in a different country. We played soccer almost all day long, unless even when we were in school, during the recreation hour, we played soccer. So we were always active. Nowadays, you think about our younger generation, what do they do? They're on their iPads, they're on their cell phones, right? I mean, that's like an all-day, everyday events. That in itself is bad because of the sedentary lifestyle that it has created. But in addition to that, I think even more important than that is the anxiety that has created, the social media, the rampant access to social media among our younger age population. Again, study after study is coming out that has caused an increase in anxiety disorders, depression, body dysmorphia. All those conditions lead to developing diseases like hypertension and diabetes and cancer because of the constant stress that the body is under.
Listen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I finally got you. You're a tough man to wrestle down, but I appreciate your people for bringing you by. I really do. He is Dr. Ismail Porsa. He is President and Chief Executive Officer for Harris Health. Thank you so much for joining us, and come back. We'll do another show sometime
Absolutely.
and talk about another disease.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Coming up on 30 Minutes, we're taking a trip to Coleman College to get a little bit more personal insight on the disease they call the silent killer. Dr. Patricia Pereira is from Venezuela and has been a professor at HCC's Coleman College in Health Sciences for 21 years. I sat down with her to get a little bit more personal perspective of diabetes.
Mounjaro is a very popular diabetes medicine, but there are a lot of people that are using that for weight loss.
For weight loss.
And
because they can lose 15, 30 pounds in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
This is a lot.
Now, is that something that you can keep off? Is that something
No.
permanent?
And it's not healthy either. You cannot lose so many pounds in your body and be healthy. That is not true. You are going to produce a lot of things and you are consuming your muscle too. So it's not healthy for the people, no. So I don't recommend any of those injections for lose weight. Change your habit, go and do exercise, more education with the food. This is what I recommend.
Okay. Now, also, I was really big on smoothies. And then I went to the doctor and they told me, no, don't do it. Because even though you're mixing different fruits and it's natural sugar, the fact that you're mixing all of these different sugars together
It's worse.
Is worse and will make your blood sugar spike.
Yes, and the people have the habit to, okay, in the morning and with the breakfast, we have to eat some fruit or yogurt. And that is a bad habit because the first thing that you have to do is trying to get some proteins and fiber so you feel the sensation of the plenitude. And then the sugar, it should be for the afternoon to keep the sugar. But if you're using a bowl with different fruit, your sugar is going to do a huge spike. And in 2 or 3 hours, you don't have the sugar anymore. And now you are craving for more sugar. So in 2 or 3 hours, you need more sugar and more sugar. And this is the people like me. In the afternoon, we feel fatigue. We need the sugar and the consume from the sugar because we don't have enough protein and fibers in the morning.
What's a good breakfast in the morning to eat for a diabetic?
Anything that have proteins, for example, eggs, and the good fat, like avocados, for example. Any kind of eggs, avocado. You can eat a small piece of the bread because it's okay to have some carbohydrate, but you cannot do the combination for the bread with the fruit and also a juice, for example. This is a combination of 3 different sugars. So after that, you can eat your normal lunch and doesn't have to have, you need to eat carbohydrates. So it's not bad that you eat carbohydrate. You need to eat pasta, you need to eat potatoes, sweet potatoes in this case. But the sugar, it should be for the 1 or 2 p.m. with moderation and control and not mixing 2 different sugars. And the fruits are good for the afternoon, but not for the morning and not for the dinner. And a lot of people also, oh, let me eat just vegetables and fruit at night. That is the worst thing that you can do also too.
Okay, now what I try to avoid is white rice, white bread, and white pasta. Is wheat bread better than white bread? Because that's hard for me because I eat sandwiches. And what am I going to put on my sandwich?
The wheat bread is better, but the problem is that the people eat the wheat bread and they eat a big slice and 2 and 3 slices at the same time. You are not doing anything. So if for you the flavor is better, your white bread, do it, but in moderation. Just do 1 slice instead of 2, 1 time a day and not every day. So if I really like my white bread, I will do it maybe in the morning, yes, with some proteins, and just 1 slice. So, but I have people that do, okay, let me eat a sandwich with white bread, and they use 2 huge big sandwich with 2 slices in every sandwich. That is what is not good. So everything with moderation, it should be okay. If you feel like you cannot eat any wheat bread because you don't like it, it's okay that you have some satiety with the food that you enjoy, because this is the habit for your life. So you need to eat food that you really enjoy.
Are bananas pretty good?
Bananas are good, but it's a high sugar. So if you have to decide between the fruit that need the sugar, bananas and watermelon are not good at all. And but everything that is berries.
Everything I like.
Blueberries, cranberries are really good.
A1C is the largest number, correct? The day-to-day numbers are important, but do they need to be consistent? Like if I if I consistently peak at 250, do I need to get lower than that consistently for like 2 or 3 months, and then I'll see a drop in my A1C?
The people get worried about that because they say, okay, if I measure my sugar every day and I have more than 120, 140, is that okay? Anytime that you use the sugar and the glucometer and you have more than 200, definitely you have a problem over there. More than 200 is a problem, eat it or not eat it. What is the most important for the patient? Control your fasting glucose. So you have to be 12 hours without any food at all, and then measure your glucose. That is going to give you the number of the glucose. But in a patient with diabetes, if I have 125 in the morning, that is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. If I have a 140 in a patient that before have 600, that is amazing. Mm-hmm. So the hemoglobin A1C is what really tell me what is the control for the disease. So what we do is we control the patient with a fasting glucose, with hemoglobin A1C, and then after the treatment, 3 months, we check the hemoglobin A1C again. So what are the values for the hemoglobin A1C? Less than 5.7 is what we call a normal hemoglobin A1C. Mm-hmm. Between 5.7 and 6.2, mm-hmm. we say that it has a pre-diabetes, and more than that is diabetes.
So anything over 6 is?
6.2 is diabetes for sure. 6.5, some labs say 6.5. Now, if I have a patient that have 12 before, and right now he have 8, mm-hmm. it is working my treatment or no? Yes, it's working. Mm-hmm. You are getting better. You don't going to get probably the normal numbers in maybe 6 months or a little bit more. Mm-hmm. The most important is that the numbers get better. Doesn't mm-hmm. mean that your glucose every day is going to get better. You can get a spike mm-hmm. depending on the food that you are consuming.
And then every time you eat, it goes up?
Oh yes, all the time. Okay. Normally you have 1 hour or 2 hours that your glucose is going to increase. But the most important is after 2 hours, you can control the values under 200. So water. When you feel bad, dizziness, thirsty, you need to drink a lot of water, eat 1 or 2 bananas that day, it's going to be fine.
Thank you, Dr. Pereira. I hope this information was beneficial to you. The content provided in this program is for informational purposes only. Consult your doctor first before making any decisions about your health. I sincerely hope you receive some valuable information. If you are struggling with diabetes, listen to me. You didn't get that way overnight, and you won't get better overnight. It's just the facts. Taking care of yourself and being your healthiest is the best gift that you can give yourself. I hope this show has given you valuable tools to help you live a long life and great quality of life managing your diabetes. If you have something you think would be interesting for me to cover, send me a message on our YouTube channel at 30 Minutes with Parrish Murphy and subscribe. For all the great people that helped put this show together, I'm Parrish Murphy, and I will see you next time.